North Korea claiming it successfully tested a new medium-range ballistic missile capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. That is bad news. A preliminary assessment by the U.S. military says the KN-17 missile in the air for 30 minutes. It splashed down about 60 miles south of Russia's Vladivostok region, roughly 250 miles from Japan. And joining us now to assess the latest North Korean provocations, the potential of an electromagnetic pulse or EMP attack on this country. Joining us tonight, Dr. Peter Fry, the Executive Director of the Task Force on National and Homeland Security, the Chief of Staff of the Congressional EMP Commission, and it is great to have you with us, Peter. This is deeply alarming because this now makes it pretty clear that North Korea is almost within reach of Japan and perhaps as well, with some success, the United States itself, or at least some of our territories.
Thank you for having me, Lou. Yes, it does indicate that. Indeed, their current missiles can already reach Japan and South Korea. We talked last week about they can pose a satellite threat to the United States.
Are we absolutely convinced that they are working toward an EMP attack? How certain are you? We talked last time about 2 satellites held by North Korea that have been put up by North Korea that are going around the globe at the perfect altitude to carry out an EMP attack. How certain are you? What is your level of confidence?
Well, the EMP Commission has high confidence that this is part of the North Korean game plan. In addition to this most recent test, which, by the way, it was launched on a trajectory consistent with practicing for EMP, because this missile was not launched for range. It was launched for altitude.
Right.
So an EMP
going up
attack, you can burst.
About 1,300 miles. I mean, it was quite a high trajectory.
That's correct. The reason you do that is to gain altitude, because so the EMP field can be as big as possible on the ground. And the last missile test that they did prior to this one, the Japanese and South Korean military both described it as practicing for an EMP attack, because it was burst on ascent deliberately by the North Koreans when it was at an altitude of about 71 kilometers.
We know that the United States basically is unprepared. Civilian America certainly is basically unprepared for an EMP attack. What would be the result in, say, New York City, Chicago?
Not just in New York, but across the country. Potentially, an EMP attack with a single warhead could shut down the electric grid across the entire country and cause a protracted blackout lasting months or years. Cars would be paralyzed. Airplanes could fall out of the sky. You'd have natural gas pipeline explosions, nuclear reactor overloads. And worst of all, if you had a protracted blackout, it would be a serious threat to the survival of the American people. We only have enough food to feed people in this country for 30 days.
No, but I was taking New York or Chicago particularly as an example of the big cities across the country that would be absolutely devastated, because there's very little in the way of stored food and resources. It would be an even worse disaster in the cities than it would be arguably in the suburbs and the rural areas. We're about out of time. I've got to ask you this. What are we going to do about your confidence and that of your commission in the fact that the North Koreans are prepared for an EMP attack?
Well, President Trump has already taken one important step last week when he signed an executive order for cybersecurity, because EMP is related to cyber attacks. The North Koreans, Russians, and Chinese regard EMP attack as part of cyber warfare. They're closely related. We hope that the President will next sign the Congressional EMP Commission's draft executive order to protect the country from EMP, an executive order which the Obama administration refused to sign for 8 years.
Dr. Peter Fry, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it, as always, as we continue our conversation and learn more from you about the EMP threat from, in addition to all the other threats, from North Korea.